Greetings, everybody. Welcome back. And again, as always, a very special guest on the show. The man needs no introduction at all, especially for those of you from the Triangle area of North Carolina. And we've got a successful entrepreneur, author, musician, past venue owner. And this right here is one of the best books that I ever read. Everything I know about the music business I learned from my cousin Rick, The Musician's Practical Guide to Success. Make sure you buy this book. And he did not pay me to say this. I'm telling you right now, if you're an artist, you need to get your hands on this book. And there's a second edition coming out soon. Please welcome Mr. Dave Rose.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
It's so cool to have you out
Thanks.
on this extremely ominous, rainy December day.
This is wonderful, man. It's great out here. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. And thanks for what you're doing for the music community, too.
Oh, well.
This is
my
great.
Pleasure. My pleasure. Just trying to fill the void, if there is one. Beginning stages for you, which we've got a lot of things to cover, but we'll just start with, and obviously, you know, I read the book, so I have an idea of your background and where you came from. But for those that haven't read the book and really just know your name as a household name and don't have much beyond that as far as knowledge of you, how did this crazy ride start as far as music and bass and
Sure, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you know, it was I started Deep South in 1995. We started as a record label with very little plan. No plan, actually. It started with I wanted to make my own personal kind of compilation. Remember mixtapes? Mm-hmm. Like, I wanted my own personal mixtape, and I was going to put it on the CD, and it was basically going to be 13 or 14 local acts that I liked, and just that was the end of the plan. Just like I didn't even like know how to get it in stores, or I was just going to put them on a CD and enjoy them for myself. Well, I did that, and I had some big acts on that first one. Butch Walker, Five for Fighting, Athenaeum, and ended up having a huge #1 hit with a song called Sex and Candy from Marcy Playground. Mm-hmm. Became like one of the biggest songs of the 90s. And that was all just like, I don't know. I was just picking songs that I liked, and we put them on this CD, and it kind of took off from there.
When you started out, it was more from a playing standpoint, right?
Yeah, before that, I was playing in a band, and I am a bass player. I was a bass player, and even for that, I should have realized early on, like, that was not in the cards for me to play music. Like, I enjoyed it, but what I enjoyed more was the ability, this sounds weird, but the ability to make money from it. Like, I was smart enough to know I didn't want a job. I didn't like bosses too much. I mean, I'm not like a rebellious kind of guy, but I just that wasn't a structured 9-to-5 life was not in the cards for me. So when I realized that, like, hey, this is pretty cool. You can create an idea in your head, record it, or play it live, and people will pay money for it if it's good enough. That's a pretty fun job. That'd be pretty cool if I could do that. So I really fell in love with the idea of marrying art and commerce. And while my bandmates were like practicing their guitar and practicing all their instruments, I was like calling radio stations and trying to book gigs, and that was my passion. I loved bringing those worlds together. As a matter of fact, I didn't even start out playing bass. My first band in the Raleigh area came to me and said, I going back even further, I didn't even know you could start a band. Like, I just thought like bands came from LA, and it was just like, if you didn't live in LA or New York, that's where you started a band. But so I met this band at NC State, and they were they were a couple of them were seniors in high school, and they asked for some help, like, can you get us some gigs. And so I booked, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 gigs for them. And a couple of weeks before the first gig, they came to me and said, we need to cancel our gigs. Our bass player is moving to another state, and we'll cancel these, and then we'll audition bass players. And I just went, no. Like, I worked hard to get these
sweat
gigs.
Equity into this, man.
We're gonna play these gigs, and they were like, well, we don't have a bass player. And I said, here's what we're gonna do. I've been watching you guys in rehearsal. It doesn't look that hard. I'm gonna sit with you for like 2 weeks. You're gonna teach me to play the bass. It was only like 10 songs that we knew total. So I was like, you're going to teach me the 10 song. We're going to go out and we're going to play these gigs. And then after that, you can audition bass players. And they were kind of looked at me and they were like, that's not how it works. Like, you don't even own a bass. Like, you've never played bass before. And I said, well, I'm going to learn. And sure enough, I fortunately picked up on it very easily. It came very naturally. But, that should have been an indication that, like, I was not in this for the love of music. I mean, I loved music and I loved making music, but I loved more the marriage of music and commerce.
Yeah.
And so we went out and we did those gigs, and I just ended up at the end of it, they were just kind of like, well, you're pretty good at this, and why don't we get along? Why don't we just keep doing this? And so I played bass in bands for another 10 years after that. And that was pretty fun. But it was, it was an indication that, like, so that's how I got into playing bass.
Yeah.
And then so really what I did was, as I had this band, and I was trying to think of ways, like, how could we get more gigs? Well, if we were on a record label, we would probably get booked more. That was just my naive, my way of thinking at the time. I thought, well, if we were signed to a record label, we would probably get more gigs. So I started a record label and put my band in this first compilation, along with these other regional successful bands. My thought process was, if the club owner saw, hey, there's all these successful bands, and and I called them to, like, book my band, they would go, well, we're booking all these other bands, so sure, that makes sense. We'll add you to the bill somewhere. And it worked somewhat. It worked fairly well, but really from that point on, I realized, like, I should be on the business side of this. And
we're seeing that on a grand scale now, with collaborating on through Instagram, Facebook. So it went from compilation CDs to now video or audio content streaming. It's really the same human element of, let me see if I can make this work, So it sounds like that entrepreneurial hamster in the wheel was there from a young age for you.
Yeah. And make no mistake about it, I love music. I love,
of course,
music.
Yeah.
It's amazing that music is the only thing in the world that can unify everyone, and it's just so beautiful in that way, and I love that about it.
Economics, NC State, right?
Yeah.
So during that time, I'm trying to remember this correctly. You started Deep South while in college, or right after college? Right after.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got out of college. I was playing in a band, and didn't want to get a job, and started this record label. I mean, again, back to the lack of a plan. We put out this compilation CD, and we were about to go to press. We had like a 10 a.m. deadline one morning to get it to the plant to be able to duplicate it. I don't even know why we had a deadline. We didn't really have a plan. So, but for whatever reason, whenever we wanted it out, we had to have it to the plant by 10 a.m. And we were kind of going through the final stages of it, and we had the layout and everything. And we looked at it, and we looked at a couple other CDs, and we looked down and we went, our CD doesn't have a logo. Like all the, like, Warner Records, RCA Records,
right.
We should probably have like we probably look cooler if we had a logo. So literally, like 10 minutes before having to submit this thing, we drew up this little Deep South logo. And I remember us saying, like, we were like, we can always change it later. And 20. It's still the same logo.
the same.
Still the same amateur logo. So that's how little of a plan we had.
Well, for a little of a plan, 75 albums or singles later that have appeared on the Billboard charts, over 7 million albums sold, more than 100 million streams associated with your management guidance. So the moral is don't have a plan.
Yeah, I would not suggest that. It worked out for us, but but yeah, it's good to have a little bit of a plan. It's also kind of good to be a little naive about stuff. I think I mentioned in the book, like, and this is not my quote. I think it's actually a Bill Gates quote, or maybe it's a Steve Jobs quote. One of the two said, sometimes not knowing what you're up against is a good thing.
I have it written here somewhere. I was just going to try and dig that, but we're on the same stream here.
And that's such a true thing. Like, sometimes you just got to dive in and just try it and make some mistakes. And my whole philosophy is don't be afraid to make the mistakes. But make sure you monitor those mistakes and really pay attention to them and realize when they're mistakes. But yeah,
it's a constant audit.
It is a constant audit.
Constant.
Even today, that's my life. I'm constantly making mistakes and constantly fixing them. That's part of the fun to me. I mean, I enjoy the process of kind of learning as I go and learning something new. And but yeah, that was that.
It sounds like then the element really is perhaps having the faith to take the risk with whatever the endeavor is or the idea or whatever that vision quest is, to just forget the excuses and just take a step forward.
Totally. Because truly, had I known how hard it was to start a record label in the mid-90s in Raleigh, North Carolina, of all places. I mean, I only knew two people in the music business at that time, and I asked for advice, and both of them said the same thing. They said, well, whatever you do, get out of Raleigh. You can't do it in Raleigh. That's not going to happen. I didn't like that answer. So, I just kept on. I stayed in Raleigh and, but it's getting some advice, getting a plan together is good. But man, had I known, I probably wouldn't have done it. And so I'm glad I didn't know all the hurdles I would come up against.
What would you say were the biggest 2 to 3 hurdles, or I've got right here, biggest challenges of running a label?
Yeah.
Anything that comes off the top.
Oh, yeah. In the mid to late 90s, the biggest challenge, the biggest thing that hit me was this thing called Napster, which was massive.
Lars Ulrich.
Yeah.
It's the first thing that comes to my mind when
Right. I remember we met with them and they talked about launching Napster and they were talking to a lot of indie labels at the time, but I remember just thinking like, wow, this is going to change the business. This was around 99. I'd been in business about 4 years. And so at that point, that's when we kind of switched our company to management. And we took a couple of bands that were signed to the label and we started managing them. And thankfully I made that change, because being a label in 2000, from 2000 to like 2008, 9, 10 was really hard. I mean, you saw labels crashing all over the place because of, the change in landscape. Now it's back to, it's a great time to be a record label right now. But it took 20 years to get there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Labels are doing very well right now for the most part. But yeah, that time in between of like, lots of free services, lots of, it's a tough time to be a songwriter right now, but it's a good time to be a record label.
Are there more labels now, you think, than back in the heyday of,
No, they consolidated. The majors consolidated. I don't know the stats on that, but I would say there's probably fewer now. But it's a good time to be one. I mean, the streaming services are, we figured out how to, if you think about the early 2000s, like when Napster and LimeWire and all those were really prevalent, there was a time where we thought like nobody will ever pay for music ever again. Like
Right.
it's done.
Right.
But now most people have some sort of premium subscription to something.
Yeah.
Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music. Most, not all, but it's heading that way. So people
And
are
it's
paying
just
for
the way
music.
it is.
Yeah.
That's it. Mm-hmm. It's here to stay, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, I mean, and credit iTunes, there was a time when they got people to buy music again through downloads, which was, they weren't buying the whole album, but they were buying music still. But there was definitely a 5-year period where we thought nobody's ever going to buy music again. It's done.
Wow. Did you ever think about getting out of the business at that
Oh,
point?
no.
Okay.
The good thing about what I do is I basically help artists, and as long as there is music, there will be artists who need help navigating whatever it is, whether it's CDs in 1995 or streaming in 2020. There's always the need for that help. And so, no, I've never considered getting out, but I've always had to be careful about what I did, what my role was in the music business, because, I wanted to stay in it. So I had to kind of evolve as it evolved.
Well, it's a perfect segue.
Love segues. The book with there's not a 4-syllable word in that book, by the way, so you can read it fast. It's also guaranteed to cure insomnia.
I remember reading this all over the place. I was in I think I was in New York a majority of the time. I was reading it earlier this fall, and I'll just show you.
Oh man,
it's been through the.
You used the
ringer
highlighter on that.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. This definitely is an article to what you just said, which is helping artists. You definitely helped me with this book, and I've been in this business since I was a toddler, basically, as a childhood actor. So the amount, as you can see, the amount of information in here is just invaluable to me. It's unbelievable.
Thank you. I read a lot of music business books prior to writing that one, and it was interesting that like I could walk away from it knowing like, okay, well, here's what a good record deal is, or like the other books taught me like, this is a good artist royalty rate on a record deal, or here's a good publishing deal, or here's how publishing deals work. And that was valuable information to kind of know like how deals were structured and how the music business worked. But I always walked away from those books thinking like, that's fine and dandy, but like, I want to know how to get the record deal. Like, that's more important to me as a musician. Like, how do I even get to the point of getting a record label interested in me? Once I get to that point, I think I can figure out what a good record deal is. But I would, and I just sort of wanted to write this book from the perspective of don't get so caught up in the like business of it that you forget how to even get to that point of getting an industry interested and a fan base interested in you.
It can be tough because it's almost like a paradigm shift where in order to get what you want, you have to kind of forget about it. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that thread, a lot in successful people like yourself who put out information. It's like, yes, it's it can be a complicated process, but sticking to the simplicity of just making great music. Like that's really the takeaway. Like if it's good enough and you care enough about it and you care enough about your fans and you're able to put in, well, if you're willing to put in the time and the expenditure and the energy, time will tell.
Yeah, I had a band come to me once and they said, all right, Dave, we've trademarked our name. We got a checking account. We got a partnership agreement together. We've got We've got an LLC. We've got everything's in order. We got all our business affairs in order. So what's the next step? And I said, well, send me some music. And they were like, well, we haven't started writing music yet. I'm like, you have an LLC and you haven't started writing music yet? Like, you have definitely put the cart before the horse. Like, focus on making some great music first and then sort of figure that out as you go. But yeah.
I gotta read a couple of and I didn't send this to you in the email. Okay. I'm not gonna read all of these. Or maybe I will. I don't know. But they're killer. And these are probably 2% of all the ones I wanted to include. But I just got to read a couple of these because they just punch right in between the eyes. So these are quotes from the book that these are just my personal takeaways. When opportunity knocks, answer the damn door. I didn't choose music. Music chose me. There is no magic wand. Make great music and people will tell people. Don't be an idiot. Love your craft and love the process. Seize the moment. Get out and meet people. You have to be proactive. They aren't going to seek you out. That is just killer and so true. Dress for the gig you want, not the gig you have. Also, killer advice. Wake up early. Don't oversell yourself. The fans are your boss. It's your business. Be involved. Sometimes not knowing what you're up against is a good thing. Trust your instincts. Sometimes what you don't do is more important than what you do. Another,
Amen.
Amazing.
Yeah.
When your moment arrives, notice it. Engage your fans. Talk about their interests as much as your own. Then one at the end, which is probably my favorite right now, was Terry Anderson's.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know what? Let's hear that story. I want to hear that. Yeah. I want to hear that in person because I read about it in the book. But I don't want to spoil it.
Sure. Terry Anderson's a great songwriter. He's had a couple of charted hits. His biggest hit was a song by Dan Baird called I Love You, Period. I started a band with him in 1999. I was well into Deep South. It was a band called the Hot Skillet Lickers, and it was a goofball band, and we intended for it to be. It was just really silly songs, and we wrote and recorded one song, and put it on one of these compilations, and just really as a joke. And then we got a call from Walnut Creek Amphitheater here in Raleigh. They were doing a Carolina festival, and they asked us to play on it. And we weren't even a band. We had just recorded one song, and so I told Terry and the guys, like, let's consider playing this. It's pretty cool. And so we got together and we wrote like 8 silly, goofy, fun songs, and went out and played this festival. And after the festival, if you've ever been to it, like any big amphitheater, there's 3 merchandise stands throughout the pavilion, and I walked around to each one, and just after we had played, toward the end of the show, toward the end of the day, and said to each one, like, who sold the most merchandise? What did you? And we didn't have merchandise. I mean, we weren't even a band. We didn't have any merchandise. But I was just kind of curious. That's just what I did. Like as a label guy, I was just curious, like who of the 20 acts here, who sold the most? That's sort of label guy question. And in all 3 cases, they said, well, it was sort of spread pretty evenly, but if I'd have had merchandise from the Hot Skillet Lickers, we would have sold the most of that.
Wow. So
I went back to the band. I said, this is, we were all well into our careers and not really interested in starting a band at that point. But I said, like, this seems to be working. Like, maybe we should do it. So we recorded an EP and put it out and went on tour with Blue Oyster Cult, of all things, which is just as silly as it could be. I mean, that was awesome. Blue Oyster Cult's great. So nothing against them, but we were just this non-taking ourselves serious band.
Was that post-cowbell skit?
No, that was pre-cowbell skit. Yeah. But so we were about to go on stage for the first show, and we were just about to walk up, and the lights were down, and the crowd was there and everything. And Terry Anderson gathered us all around right before we were walking up, and he said, "Hey, if I catch anybody giving a shit, I'm going to whoop your ass." And I thought, man, I mean, it was funny at the moment, but you think about it, like, you've rehearsed, you've done all your things, you've written, you've practiced. when you get on stage, it's time to just say, like, this has got to be what it's going to be. And you can't care too much at this point. Like, it's time to relax, time to have some fun. And that was great advice. And I now say that I've said that to huge national touring acts.
So
like,
good.
Right, I've passed that advice on to many other people.
Oh,
but yeah.
It's so good. So, Amazon charting book, Guitar Magazine calls it the only book a musician needs as their guide to success. Let's get into and that's 100% true.
Thank you.
We got to get into some of these stories though that you have in here, because it's not only is it exceptional knowledge and just very value pushing, it's also hilarious. There's just great moments.
Thanks.
I've got Striper here as the first one, and this is just a lot of these stories I have here are crazy, but this one is just a testament to, again, that resourcefulness. And could you just elaborate a little bit on the garage story and then getting to see Striper, and then 20 years later?
Yeah, my first concert was an 80s hair band called Striper. They were a Christian band. They are a Christian band. They're still around.
Still kicking butt.
Yeah, they're still very active. But, so I was... young, right out of high school. I didn't go to concerts in high school. I didn't really know. So, anyways, I wanted to go to this concert by Striper, and I asked my dad for the money, and he said no. But if you clean out the garage, there's a stereo in there. You can sell it, and you can have the money to get tickets. So I did that. I cleaned out the garage. I took the stereo to a pawn shop. I got $25 and bought tickets and some gas, drove to Spartanburg, South Carolina, and saw the band Striper. And I got the bug. I was like, wow, this is cool. I remember leaving that show, and I said to my friends, I want to be in this business. And, this is what I want to do. I didn't know there was a business of music. Like, I just said, this is kind of what I want to do. And they were like, what, playing Striper? And I said, no, like, I don't know what I want to do, but something. I just thought, like, maybe I could take tickets at the door for, like, a show, or I just didn't know. I just knew that.
You just want to be involved.
The feeling that I had in that concert was like, I got to do this. So I obviously kept that feeling, started a record label, went on. And around 2001, I got thinking about, like, I wonder what Striper's up to. And this was sort of just as the internet was kind of getting going. And so I looked. Michael Sweet, the singer of Striper, had a website, but he didn't have email or anything like that. He had a P.O. box listed on there. So I wrote him a letter, like a letter, and said, hey, I'm have this fairly successful management company, and you were my first concert, and I'm a fan, and if I can ever help you, let me know. Well, a few days later, the phone rings, and he had called me.
Wow.
And he was on his, like, he was working as a campground ranger in Massachusetts. Like, he had gotten out of music and everything. And so he sent me some songs, and one thing led to another. We put Striper back together, and they've now been back together 18 years. They've been back together longer than they were together in the beginning. And I've been managing them for ever since.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
wow.
It's pretty neat to, like,
that's so cool.
Have what was your first concert?
Grand Funk Railroad.
Oh, see, that's a cool one. That's a great one.
Well, here's a crazy thing about this. So, and I'll kind of digress for a second, just since you brought this up. I was around 3 or 4. This was like, no, I think I was 2, because I think it was 96 or 97. I was born in 94. So, stroller. Like, I was in a stroller. My parents brought me in a stroller to go see Grand Funk Railroad.
That's good parents right there.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Now, this was Don, Mel, and Mark, all 3. Mm-hmm. It was original before everything went south with some of the legal things that happened, and that they're still unfortunately dealing with. I grew up on Mark Farner's faith-based music, and then later it turned into Grand Funk when I was in middle school, and just fell in love with Donald Brewer's drumming and just like, you know, to me, it was everything. It was kind of like Deep Purple. It's like you're getting everything you want in one record or one song, you know, great vocals, great instrumentation, great songs, great sound. I just met Mark Farner finally. I think it was like a month or two ago, and he played on his with as a solo artist with his backing band, and literally hung out with Mark Farner afterwards because they were staying at the same hotel.
Oh, cool!
And he was talking to one of his friends, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" Like Mark Farner is literally staying in the same hotel. And like we said hey and everything at the meet and greet. But I was like, oh my God, man. So I've got my Strat with me. I'm thinking, okay, well, hey, good thing I read your book, right? Yeah. Because when your moment arrives, notice it.
Notice it, right? Yep.
Okay, here's my moment. So I just forced myself to go walk out the door to the lobby, and he's drinking coffee and hanging out. And I'm like, there's no way I can sit here and know that you're in this hotel with the influence that you've had on my life and not come up and just ask you, can I sit down and hang for a little bit? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So
that's cool.
We sat down and I talked with him for probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And got to play him a couple of songs and hang and just
That's
jam.
awesome.
Yeah. So it was a bucket list moment for me. But anyway, that's to answer your question. So it's strange how that was always like a prayer of mine, like just one of those like, hey, if this ever happens, it's still sort of like I still can't believe it happened. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's just unbelievable. It's like biggest influence in my life musically, and it was amazing.
That's awesome. Is he still doing Christian music, or is he?
I don't think he's doing it right now. He's still a believer, and I think he still does. He dabbles in a lot of ministry work still.
Yeah. I remember when he was doing that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. So, moving on with stories, you know, Avril Lavigne, and this cracked me up because when I first read the book, I didn't realize it was an ASCAP booth, but then I saw the picture with copyright on the hat, and I was like, that makes this even funnier because it's just such a music industry story. If you could elaborate on it a little bit, just because I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
You know?
There was a, these music conferences, there's floors where everybody sets up a booth, and you've got ASCAP and BMI, and you've got, it's everything from apps to whatever. And over at the ASCAP booth, they had these knit caps, for lack of a better word. And it was freezing in Philadelphia then. And so all day long as we were like going around to our different things, I kept saying to her, and she's from Canada. So I kept saying to her, it's so cold out here. I need to stop by that ASCAP booth and get a toboggan. And I'm from the South. A toboggan is that thing you wear on your head. It's a hat. Yeah. So finally, midway through the day, she's like, why do you need a sled? And why is ASCAP giving them away? And I was like, I don't need a sled. And she said, yeah, you see a toboggan. Like that's. And so we came to realize like a toboggan in Canada is a sled, and
Olympics or something.
Yeah. And she said, and so we got talking, and I asked her what she called this thing that you wear, and she said she calls it a toque. And I had never heard that. I just thought that was a funny story, but so I'm very conscious of what I call that now based on
months later you guys were at that event, as you elaborate in the book,
and
New York City.
She talked about what should I call my what should I call myself, and we joked about calling herself Avril Lavigne and the Toques, and,
but she stayed with that. She stayed with her name then. She didn't change her name.
That's right. We had a conversation about, I remember she very honestly asked, like, do you think I should go by Avril or just by Avril Lavigne? And, I I talk a lot about band names in my business, and band names are interesting. Like, they really, like, let me give you an example. I think the worst band name in the history of band names of all music is the Beatles.
Beatles.
Yeah. It's a bug. It's spelled wrong. It's a bug that nobody really likes. And they were a band sort of appealing to a female audience. Why name yourself after a bug if you like? I mean, it was just had all the wrong elements of a name. So yeah, the point being is, like, if you make music as great as the Beatles made music, you really can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. And Avril was sort of early on a little bit concerned that, like, people might not be able to pronounce Levine, or, you know, would it hinder the process? And that's, you know, that, again, back to the fact that, like, if you make great music, people are going to figure out how to pronounce whatever it is you want them to figure out, including the Beatles.
Are you still in touch with her at all? You guys?
Not really.
Okay.
No, not much. Not lately.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Once every couple of years.
When we run into each other, we're friendly. But yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now on to my favorite. When I read that, I was on a train going into New York City when I was like, this is just out of all the stories I've heard or read about in the music industry, and they talk about the 6 degrees of separation and all that. This was like, I cannot believe this. Like the percentage, the chances of this happening. It's just like, I don't even know how you would calculate, you know.
Oh.
The Gene Simmons.
The Gene Simmons story. Yeah, I figured where you were going with that. Okay.
It's just, and then obviously when I read the book, I got Gene Simmons' book, and it was everything that you lionized it to be. Incredible.
He's a great, like, business person, and I think nobody would ever deny that. But I read his book, and it was Sex, Money, and Kiss. Am I getting that name right? Yep.
It came out, I think, in 2004. It was one of the earlier ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I read his book, and I was flying to Vegas to see Stryper. They were starting their tour in Vegas on that night for a tour. And I finished the book on a plane, and I was with my, at the time, business partner. And I turned to him as we were getting off the plane. I said, man, that book has changed my life. This Gene Simmons book has changed my life. And it really did give me some fresh perspective on, like, just business in general.
Yeah.
It was really, really energizing, and I highly encourage that book. Gene is I've always said, like, Gene is very good at what he does. Just ask him. He'll tell you. Like, but he is good. He's really good. Anyways, that book changed my life. We get off the plane, we go about our business, we go to sound check, we go to Stripe, we go to a restaurant, and then we go to this, like, just sort of club in the hotel, this bar, and there's probably about 8 people in there. And my business partner is looking at me, and he goes, "Don't turn around, but Gene Simmons is right behind you." And I went, there's no, I knew he was just kidding with me because I had just said how that book had just changed my life. I certainly didn't know that Kiss or anybody else would be in town that day. Turns out they were playing with Aerosmith that night. And he was just in that bar. And I knew from his book, like, he didn't drink or anything. And so anyway, so I just turned around and just started a conversation, sort of like your Mark Farner thing. Just kind of said, "Hey, I just want to introduce myself. I can't not introduce myself." And, we ended up engaging in conversation for a couple hours. Other people coming and going. He is very much in person, exactly like he is everywhere else. Very confident, borderline cocky. He's very sure of himself, and really nice though.
Yeah,
and it was just
amazing
to have read that book And of all, I mean, God,
Come on.
There's got to be 1,000 nightclubs in Vegas. I was in the one that he happened to walk into.
Not only that, but I mean, think of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have been playing anywhere
on that
in the
particular
world
night.
on that particular night.
And we just ran into him right as I finished his book. He was not with an entourage or anything that I would have suspected. He was just him hanging out in there. And it was funny because it started with like 8 people and it stayed that way for a little while. And then people just started hearing about it. And before you know it, the place was packed.
This is my friend Dave. Give him a kiss. That was also like hilarious.
Yeah, this girl comes up and he's really good too at like kind of getting people, like he'll talk and he'll engage for a second, but he's good at deflecting because I'm sure he gets a lot of people that just talk for too long about too much stuff.
Right.
And, so yeah, a attractive young lady came up and he was deflecting and he said, you see my friend Dave here? And he asked her to give me a kiss and she did. And he was kind of like, it surprised the heck out of me, but to him, it was just like, that's
every day.
That's what it's like to
Yeah.
be a celebrity. He's very aware, which is neat. Was neat to see. He's very aware of what it's like to be a celebrity. He's very aware of his abilities as a celebrity,
and he'll use them.
And he is not afraid to use them.
Not at all.
And I've known a lot of celebrities in my life, and most are aware of it, but are I don't know, a little less. They don't sort of, he just has this incredible ability to combine that awareness with his business.
I think it's a product of, I mean, he's got some genetic makeup that makes that possible just naturally, but I think it's also a product of how he was raised and that background. I mean,
his books are telling in that sense. His books really get into his childhood and, I admire him.
That perspective is just, he's set for the rest of his life because he's always going to he's always going to reflect back on where he came from. It's an incredible story.
I know. I have a great admiration for him.
One more real quick on the book, as far as stories, and then we just have a couple of other questions here. This is brilliant. The flyer incident with I refer to it as the 10-to-1 ratio because it went from 5,000 to 500. I'll let you explain it.
Yeah. So back in the day, kids, you used to hand out flyers when you had a gig. You would print up like, hey, we're going to be at such and such club on such and such date. And you would go out on college campuses or wherever and you would hand out these flyers. And my band printed up like 5,000 flyers, like an insane amount of flyers. And we went out to NC State and we handed them out like, just anybody that would take one, handing them out. And we really didn't notice any change in the audience at the show. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, how can that happen? Like, 5,000 people got that flyer and like really no change in attendance. And so we took a different strategy the next time and we said, we're going to only print 500, but we're going to have a 1-minute conversation with the person before we give them the flyer. So if we don't have the 1-minute conversation with a person, we're not allowed to give them a flyer. And that was sort of the rules we set for ourselves. And it took a whole lot longer to give out 500, finding people that would have a 1-minute. Most people won't have a 1-minute conversation with you. But it was amazing at what it did for attendance. Like, we saw a very distinct.
I wrote down 600% increase because I think you went from 15 or 20 to like 120 or something like that.
We were like a typical local band. We were drawing like 15, 20 people, 25 people, whatever. And we had over 100 after we did that example. Because this is the psychology of it all. I mean, it's no secret, but You want to go support your friends. And when you've created a conversation with someone, you've at least started the process of becoming their friends.
Right.
And you know, that concept is the exact same on social media. You know, don't post a flyer about your show and expect people to come because they've seen the flyer.
Right.
It doesn't mean that.
Right.
You've got to, I mean, I talk about social media all the time and the fact that
Pizza.
yeah, it's about pizza. Social media is
Chapter,
about
whatever,
pizza.
7 or 8, yeah.
Social media is all about pizza. If you post your flyer and you say, come see me at wherever, you're going to get crickets. Nobody's going to care. Adam Pitts is good at this, who you have.
Oh,
on
he's
this show.
fantastic.
He's
Fantastic.
great at this. But if you ask your fan base, where's the best place to get a slice of pizza, you're going to get an incredible response.
Because you're facilitating engagement.
If you're and then if you continue to engage and carry that out 10 times over and talk about the new movie that's out or the weather, I mean, talk about anything you want. Just make it a conversation, a two-way conversation. You're going to have great results the next time, or better results the next time you post a flyer and want some attention on it. Because you've engaged with those people are now friends. They're not just followers. And, you know, I think that's a big, you know, you give me a band with 50 active followers, I would take that any day over somebody with, you know, 100,000 passive followers. Because if they're active, they're engaging in your music and you're onto something with that.
Yeah. That's great. I've got here a little category called Frankie D questions. Which
right.
Because my dad started reading the book. He's still, hopefully I didn't mess up his bookmark there. He's about halfway done.
Thank you, Dad.
Yeah. He's got a question. He's got a couple here. In your book, you say you make sure to record brilliant songs. Based on all the brilliant songs that you've heard since your days with Cousin Rick, what would you say are the most important ingredients of a brilliant song? How do you define brilliant lyrics?
Yeah. So let's go back just a second and talk about Cousin Rick.
Yes, we need to talk about Cousin Rick.
Cousin Rick is a real person. And the way the reason this book is called this is because I went to my cousin Rick's house when I was very young. And he had a wall of vinyl records. I mean, huge. There had to be thousands of records. And he had a new stereo, so he wanted to play me some music when I went over there. And he reached up and he pulled up this album and he said, "Have you heard about this band?" And you know, it was the band Boston. Mm-hmm. It was their first record, and you know, I wanted to sound cool, so I said I had, but I had not. But he put it on the turntable and he was playing it and he was talking all about this. But even as a young kid, I remember thinking, like, you had 2,000 albums on that wall. Why did you pick that one? Like, why did you pick that one? If you think about, like, currently there's about 35 million songs on Spotify. If you get in the car with someone and you have that one song that you want to just play, you're just like, you gotta listen to this. Hear this. Like, you gotta hear this. Everybody has that song.
Yeah. Yep.
So really everything in the music business, everything revolves around creating music that gives people that reaction. When they have 2,000 albums to choose from, what's going to make them choose your record? When they have 35 million songs to stream, what's going to make them? They only have 5 minutes of their friend's time.
They're 5 seconds.
Or 5 seconds.
Jeez.
They're going to play what they feel moves them the most. They're going to play that, like, one thing that is just like amazingly brilliant because it's different and it touches them and it reaches them. So I try to base everything in the music business around the fact that you've got to pay attention to the fact that, are you reaching people in that way? And if you're not, it's okay. Just know that one of two things is happening. Either you're playing to the wrong audience, which is possible. I mean, if you're a jazz band and you're playing heavy metal clubs, you're playing to the wrong audience. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is, like, you're just not connecting with them in a way that's personal to them. And you don't need to feel defeated when that happens. You just need to be aware of it so that you can pay attention to when it does connect.
And adjust.
And adjust accordingly. We're in a beautiful time right now where you can upload songs and there's no limit to how many songs you can release. And you can see the data on those songs. So if you only have 50 fans, you can tell exactly which song they like the most. Like it used to be, you'd get together like listening parties and you'd have your friends like listen to your songs so you could determine which ones to release, and you would hope they would be honest. But there is no lying. When someone hits the play button and you tick one more play on that streaming data, the song that is getting the most streams is reaching people is reaching people more than the others. And as much as you might like to think that this song or that song or that song is your best song, and it might be your best song, but it's not your fans' favorite song.
The fans are your boss.
So to the question, brilliant. What makes a brilliant song? Well, a brilliant song is one that touches people in a way that they've not felt before. It can really be, and it doesn't have to be. It can be sad. It can be comical. It can be happy. It can be depressing. It can be a lot of different things. But a brilliant song is just one that rises above those emotions of what people are hearing day in and day out. And I can't define a brilliant song. That's the beauty of it. I mean, this is art. You have no idea when you're gonna, who would have thought Gangnam Style would do what it's, or who would have thought just go down the list. Friday
we were talking
Rebecca,
about
Rebecca Black, or Elvis, what does the fox say? Like, what a goofy song.
Yeah.
But zillions of streams. And so those kinds of things, or it could be, the Chainsmokers, there's different reasons songs go viral. There's different reasons people connect with songs, but that's the beauty of art. You can't predict it. What is the beautiful time about right now and this time in history and music is you don't have to worry about the business choosing that for you. You release the songs and let the people determine. And just make sure you're paying attention. I mean, it's amazing the number of artists I talk to that say, like, I'll say, like, what's your most streamed song? What song's getting the most streams? I'm not sure. Like, or what song's got the most streams this past week? I don't know. I'm not real sure. I mean, that's crazy to release music and we're at a time where, like, it's just amazing. If you think back 20 years ago when you released music, you had to it was hard to find out what people really liked.
Right.
You really didn't know what people liked.
Until you played it live or something. And
played it live. Even then, it was still a gut reaction. It was still like, okay, I think they really like this song.
Right.
It could have just been that they scored on the game on the TV behind me and they were cheering loudly, but they may have liked my song as well. It was just really hard to tell. But now there is no questions about what is your best music. And then once you see, like, oh, this is working, then pay attention to that. And if you want commercial success, then continue on that path. And that's, by the way, not always the goal, commercial success. Success is very different for everybody else. But for everybody, but yeah, that's, if you want commercial success, pay attention to those stats and you should follow those stats.
Yeah.
Because they're not lying to you. These are your best songs. We can tell you. And I love that about this time in history of the music business. It would have, it's the same Cousin Rick theory, whether it's albums on the wall in the 70s or, a stream on Spotify that you can share on your social media page. People share the music that touches them. Everybody listening right now can think of that one song when they've sat down with somebody and said, you've got to hear this. Like, have you heard this? You need to hear this. And that's a fun thing to do. It's a fun feeling to have. But think about what gives you that feeling of like, gosh, you've really got to hear this. And that's what ends up making a. My wife did it to me the other day. She heard a song and was like, have you heard this? You got to hear this. And
yeah.
It's wonderful.
You said something really interesting there in that last paragraph, long paragraph of great knowledge. And I'm not joking.
Yeah,
that was a great segment.
Thanks.
You talk a lot about actually somewhere in the first chapter or second chapter, is the beginning of the book, somewhere in the beginning, defining success. Right, how that's just so imperative, and it really it made me think a little bit more about my personal goals. And you also have a great segment about making your lists and all that. It's great stuff. But as far as defining success, could you elaborate a little bit on
Sure,
what you have to say in the flesh here with what you've put in the book, and if so, to just some artists out there that are either just starting out or have been doing this for 5 or 10 years, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how few artists define their success.
Right.
Like, can I just share the story in the book? I
Absolutely.
think that's a great, like,
absolutely.
I had a band come into my office and they sat down and they said, I'll summarize this shortly, but they said, I said, what do you want to do? And they said, well, we want to be successful, And I said, no, I really don't know. What do you mean by be successful? And they said, well, we want to make a living playing music. And I said, well, that's easy. I can probably do that like in the next 30 days. And they looked like they hit the jackpot. They were like, I think there was even a couple of high fives among a couple of the members. They thought they had come to the right place. And I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to learn all the top 40 cover songs. You're going to get some tuxedos. We're going to play the wedding and corporate circuit. And, man, those bands make great money, and they all make a living at it. And you will have been successful. You will be playing music and making a living at it. And they kind of looked, and they were like, no, that's not. No, let me think about it. We want to make a living playing our own music. I said, well, we can do that too. That's not quite as easy, but we can do that. There's plenty of just like menu venues that like you'll set up in the corner, not a lot of people pay attention, but you'll get paid pretty well and you can play whatever you want. You can do your thing and, you'll make a living playing music. And they were like, no, see. And they thought about it for a second. One guy spoke up and he said, I got it. We want to be on the radio. That's it. That's what we want to be on the radio. I said, okay, we can do that too. My buddy's the DJ at like the local show. It comes on at midnight, and we're like, no, like we want to be like, and we went on through this process, and finally one of them spoke up, and they were like, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to confuse us. That's what he said to me. And I was like, yeah, thank you for saying that. But the fact is, you came in here wanting to be successful. And really, in the course of a couple minutes, I've realized you don't even know what that means. Like, you've gone from making a living playing music to being on the radio to like, you've had several different ideas of what your definition of success is. So go back, really define that. Where do you want to be? Because it's truly different for everyone. And, some people want to make a living at this. Some people really don't care about making a living at it. Some people just want to make the art that they want to make. And they're equally as happy working in a kitchen, at a restaurant, but making the music they want to make as they are playing arenas. There's no, to some people, that's success. But you got to really define that before you can even start this journey, because otherwise you are going to be incredibly frustrated with the outcome because you'll never reach it because you don't even know what you're trying to reach.
Because then you can reverse engineer it.
Yeah.
If you have no end in mind, if you have no goal, or at least a general idea of what you're trying to obtain, you're not going to be able to navigate.
Yeah. And
how
then
to get there.
Small steps every day to where you want to be tomorrow, and just keep that process going.
Yeah. Couple other real quick dad questions.
Dad questions. Love the dad questions.
There's two more here. Regarding the most brilliant songs you've heard in the YouTube era over the last 10 years, can you think of any that have had a strong emotional connection with the masses and went viral with little or no marketing reach? If so, what do you think was unique about those and what made them such strong creative statements?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
We just talked about Gangnam Style.
Oh, my.
I mean, it's probably, I bet that's one of the top 10.
I want them to
songs
play it at my funeral. Like, quite honestly, like, I probably will have to write that up in my will at some point. Like, if I'm on my deathbed, please, right before I go flatline, please make sure
that song is played. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why songs go viral.
Me neither.
I think, but I will say it's touching something that nobody else has reached emotionally. And in that case, it's just, that's a super quirky, goofy.
So good.
But incredibly catchy song. And so it kind of combines all the elements of, I mean, you just never know whether it's going to be a Friday song or whether it's going to be, Chainsmokers or whether it's going to be Gangnam Style. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But those are,
it's doing something on a deep level.
It's doing something
obviously.
very different.
Last question from him is, do you have any advice on how to select the right co-writing partner and any do's or don'ts for any artists that want to try that type of collaboration process? I guess that's the other thing.
I'm a big believer in co-writing. Co-writing does a couple of things. One, so for if you don't, I mean, the way you co-write is typically you sit in a room with 2 or 3 people or more, and you work on a song together and you come up with a song. So the theory is you're coming up with a better song because you have more input, you have more brains thinking about it. And that is a very true thing. You think about a song in a way that you like. I have a lot of artists come away from co-writing going like, wow, I would have never thought to put that melody structure over that chord progression or whatever. You just end up thinking about things differently. The other thing that co-writing does is it creates a bigger team for your song or the song that is going to someone else. You now, instead of just you and your team, whether it's a manager or a label or even just friends rooting for that song, you now have this other writer and their circle of people rooting for this song to win in whatever way that is. But how to find the right co-writers? The best way to do it, I mean, it's like dating. You just do a lot of it.
Right.
You will not find the right co-writer ahead of time. You got to get in there. You got to actually go on a date. You got to sit down and write. And, in Nashville, it's the business. Like every single day, writers are writing with other writers and it's just every day. And you write with the law of averages. If you write with 150 writers over the course of a year, 10 of them are going to be great and you're going to connect well and you're going to write with those again. And some you just won't. It's like going on a date. Sometimes you'll just like, hey, you're nice and this is fun and this is cool, but it just doesn't click. And sometimes it'll click. Yeah. You'll know it. I mean, you'll know it as soon as you start diving in. You'll know whether it works or whether it doesn't.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those in the past, and they were just, the chemistry was incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
It's a great feeling when that happens.
It's really cool. It's effortless, The book, new edition.
Yeah, I'm working on a second edition for the book. That one came out in 2013, really, and so a lot has happened since then. The interesting thing about that book is it's written in a timeless manner. The concepts are the same. make great music, but pay attention to whether or not people are reacting to that music. And once you start making great music, some things that you can do. The book will never talk about TikTok or, I might mention TikTok, which was not around when that first came out.
Right.
But TikTok's not the answer. I promise you. In the same way,
thank you.
Yeah, in the same way YouTube was not the answer. In the same way MySpace was not the answer. The answer is great music, because things that go viral musically, it's because the music has reached people. And you might want to say, like, you might hear a viral song, Back to the Gangnam, and I'm sorry to pick on Gangnam Style because I like that. I think that's a great song. But back to that, you may want to pick on that song. But it went viral because it connects with people in a great way. And, it might be a great song. It might not, but it whatever. It connects with people. It's a hit song.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I always love that Butch Walker quote. He was in, I forgot what magazine it was in, but somebody said to him, like, why do you give away all your good songs? Why do you give away all your hit songs? Why don't you keep some of those for yourself? And he said, because I know the difference between a hit song and a good song, which is true. A hit song is not always a good song, but it's a hit, and a good song is not always a hit.
Yeah. Keto.
Yeah.
Abrupt segue.
Yeah.
But I don't know much about this diet, so I'm going to get educated here myself.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious.
Yeah, about 2 years ago, I went on a keto diet, just kind of to just try it. And basically, keto is it gets your body into a state of ketosis, which is you are getting rid of carbs, really. You're getting rid of processed sugars, added sugars, processed. I basically cut out 4 things. I cut out added sugar, bread, pasta, and rice. I know. Which, right. And it was amazing. It's from there, what I did from there is I shifted into kind of a low carb lifestyle from that, where I just eat less carbs now. But I spent a year of solid, like no bread, no pasta. And it was great. I lost weight, but that's not why I did it. Here's why I did it. I ran into like 3 or 4 people who just, I don't know. I just like, wow. And these are people I've known for a long time. I was like, wow, you seem so energetic and alive and just on top of things. And you look just like healthy. Just, there was something about, and I just asked them all, like, what have you been doing? And they all said, man, I'm on keto, on a keto diet. And so I just kind of said, well, let me try it. And man, it just changed my life. Like, It was have so much energy and so much just like, which with 2 kids is very helpful. So yeah, that's been great. So I've been about 2 years of very low carb, and it would hurt. I loved pasta. I loved rice. I loved bread.
You're in the wrong place right now, my friend. You are in the wrong place right now.
And I love sugar, so
yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny because this summer it wasn't really by design. It was just because there was so much going on, and there's still a lot going on. But lunch just would evaporate. There was never time.
Yeah.
Right. So I would do this big breakfast, and I'm in the gym 4 to 5 times a week. So, but I noticed when I was having less carbs, and a lot of people talk about this, where your strength will just kind of reach a threshold, and it's difficult to really move forward if you want to get a little stronger or just maintain, because carbs and sugar, that's where that power is. You got to have your protein, but and with Thanksgiving and everything, and it's just like it's so hard around the holidays. So I probably have a couple of pounds lingering just from all of the cakes, but I'm in the gym, and I was traveling a lot with just a lot of working on sets and acting and everything. and I wasn't able to really do my normal routine, and I thought I was going to lose a lot of strength, but I've been going in there and I've just been having some more of that sugar in my diet and carbs. It was like nothing happened. You know, it was
Interesting.
It was strange. I do feel better though when I have less of the carbs. Like I feel better. My performance in the gym isn't as powerful, but other regards, like you just, you look in the mirror, you're a little bit trimmer.
I don't know what
the body does better without it. I agree.
It. Yeah, it feels great.
Yeah, I agree with you. And maybe I'll try it sometime.
Yeah, I'm not a big nutritionist or diet person. It just kind of, I tried it for a while and it just worked for me. It doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
It worked for me.
The pasta. Still trying to recover from that earlier. Yeah. So I've got this little thing. We'll wrap with this. It's the shootout section, and really all it is, I was right. I didn't prepare until I was kind of like jotting down some things. I just say like 15 to 20 phrases or just single words, and you just kind of say the first thing that comes to mind. And it yeah, it's nothing really edgy or anything. Right. It's just,
well, you never know. You never know what comes to mind.
We never know. And because of your unique background in management and the business and just so well versed in a variety of different aspects, I'm kind of all over the board. Like if I have a musician on, I'll stick to more like gear stuff. If I have a songwriter on, I'll stick to more like poetic things. I've got kind of a gamut here.
Okay.
Direct messaging. The DM.
And I'm sorry, I didn't understand the instructions. So you want me to just say, the first thing that comes to mind?
Just whatever comes to mind. I mean, whatever comes to mind as far as, it could be a sentence, a phrase, one sentence back, whatever. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just like a popcorn answer of your impression or.
Use it sparingly.
Right.
Is that all right? Is that a good answer?
That works.
Is that the kind of ansers you're looking for? Or do you want
I don't even know what I'm looking for. There's no plan here.
This is new to me. Direct messaging is great, but don't use it especially as a primary form of business communication. Like, I get a lot of direct messages. My least favorite ones are like novels. And with lots of attachments, with like, what I'd really like in a direct message is, hey, I'd like to send you some music. What's the best way to do that? And I'll send them an email or whatever, and I'll respond by that. But too many people try to conduct very difficult business by direct message, and it's tough to do.
Yeah. Email.
Yeah, I mean, emails in the music business are interesting. You should communicate by email in a fashion that is appropriate to your relationship with that person. Don't call me bro in the first email, like, or whatever. Like, I mean,
sup.
Yeah. Well, don't say sup. Right. Don't, but on the same hand, you don't have to, be super formal either. Just, direct to the point. What do you want? Don't make it long. Emails have got to be short. I mean, most people in the music business get hundreds and hundreds of emails per day. So we don't have, unfortunately, a ton of time to go through everything. One of my most common but least favorite emails is, what do you guys do? I'm a musician. I have some music. How can you guys help me? What do you guys do over there? I'm like, well, Google will solve that problem for you. Just Google it.
You heard of it.
Yeah. So yeah, you just gotta just really be.
Don't be an idiot.
Yeah, just don't be an idiot. Just email just be smart about it. Exactly.
Chapter 2. I don't know why I remember that. Live.
As in live music? Live?
Or live show.
Yeah.
Live.
Well, it's important and love it. And it's where you're going to make your money. It's where you're going to make your closest connections with your fans. It's where you're going to live, eat, and breathe for the most of your career. So enjoy it and embrace it and concentrate on it.
Studio.
Don't spend too much money.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Studio recording is becoming easier and easier. There are times when it's appropriate to spend a lot of money, but there's times when you need to just be a little frugal in that area. And usually that time is like, if you're a new act and you've written 15 songs and you want to put some out there, don't spend a lot of money to record those songs, because back to the statistics of it all and watching your fans, you don't know which ones they're going to like. So, record as much as you can, as cheaply as you can, and just keep it going. Keep the train moving and get it out there. And then once you start to develop your sound and your direction and your fan base, and you feel like you have, a chance to expand that, maybe consider investing a little more at that point. Everybody should be able to record very cheaply right now. It's pretty easy to do. You can get you one of these and you can record a pretty good sounding album.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, right. Hopefully. Some don't, but just, yeah.
Yeah. Guitar. I told you we're going all over the place here.
Yeah, guitar.
We're halfway done. We're not going to run you through the ringer.
Let's see. Gosh, all I can think about is the joke, the old joke of
the light bulb.
What does a guitar player use for birth control? You've heard
boy.
that
No,
one?
I haven't heard this one.
Yeah. What does a guitar player use for birth control? His personality.
That's applicable to the front man too, probably.
That could be,
it's like anybody in this industry. That's great. Did you ever hear the one about the music producer with how many music producers does it take to change a light bulb?
No.
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, that's appropriate.
Piano.
I love the piano. I mean, the piano is a beautiful instrument. My grandfather was a piano tuner, and he was actually Lawrence Welk's piano tuner.
Wow.
And he, so I grew up around pianos, and I think it's just one of the most gorgeous instruments on the planet.
Bass.
Yeah, that's my instrument of choice. A bass. So a 4-string bass has 2 strings too many.
We're guessing that's D and G.
That's right. Give me the E and the A, I'm good to go. It's rock and roll.
It's the next book title. 2-string bass. Microphone.
Yeah. Bring your own. If you're touring.
Yeah. I've had my same 58 in my guitar pedal case. Yep. Singles.
As in single song releases. Yeah, I mean, everything as a developing act, that's almost all you should be releasing.
Right.
And I would argue even as an established act. I've got some really big acts I'm working with now. And what we're going to do is we're going to reverse release an album. We're going to release a series of singles. And eventually you got 8 singles released. And then you'll add a few more and call it an album.
There you go.
Rather than releasing the album and trying to pick singles out of it. Which is very hard to do because by then it's old news. I mean, by the time you've released the 8th single, that album has been out a long time.
It's just documentation anyway, That's what we're doing now.
Everything.
I get, and I'm such a record guy, so it's but I've had to adapt.
Well, when you develop a hardcore fan base, and everybody, whether they have 20 people or 2 million people as a hardcore fan base, the hardcore fan will always want the album, and that's okay. There's going to be a place for albums. They always want, you can never give a hardcore fan too much music. So I think there's a place for it. But yeah, singles are the way to do it.
Yeah. Touring.
Have fun with it.
Yeah.
Have a lot of fun with it. It can be fun and it can be tormenting, but if you have a lot of fun with it, you will enjoy this process a whole lot more.
Spotify.
Spotify is definitely the winner in the streaming business so far, and I think they've done they've taken a lot of heat from songwriters. I think we are still figuring out how that whole streaming platform is going to become a level playing field for everybody. It's not a level playing field right now.
Right. Right.
And it needs to become a more level playing field. But personally, I love Spotify.
Yeah.
I love the fact that I can go and hear 35 million songs and podcasts and everything else.
Yeah.
All in one spot for, a fee that I used to pay to buy one album. I'd buy. It's great. It's great. We've got to figure out the finances of it all, and that will happen. That will definitely happen. We'll get there.
Yeah. Booking agents.
They are your lifeline. Find a good one, have a great relationship with them, and work on a plan together.
Music video.
A good music video can really help a song a lot. A bad one can really hurt a song a lot. So be careful with your music video, because music is interpretive. So,
right.
You can oftentimes, like I've had this before. I've listened to a song and I think, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And then I see the music video and I'm like, that wasn't at all what I had in my mind.
Exactly.
And it may be what the artist had in mind, and that's cool. They have the right to do that. But for me, it changed the perception of that song once I saw the video. So, and then other times I can see a video and go, wow, I would have never thought about it that way. That's pretty cool. You just got to be careful with the video.
I got to say real quick, like what comes to mind is and I'm a huge Cars fan, huge. And unfortunately we lost Rick a few months back. Yeah. But man, he just killed me with some of those videos in the 80s. Like, the two that come to mind are Magic. They're both off of Heartbeat City, Magic and Hello Again. Just, if anybody wants to go, it's just like, please go hear the song first before you see the videos, because it's like, wow.
80s videos were
Rick,
goofy.
Rick. Let's see. Distortion.
Like with anything, use it sparingly.
Yeah. Last couple here. Business.
Music. It's, I've tried to remind myself and everyone and people I work with all the time that music business is not one thing. It's two very separate things. Music is music, business is business. We're trying to merge two worlds that are very, very different. The world of music is free and, artistic, and the world of commerce is very structured and legal. And trying to get those, it's amazing how the phrase music business has become such this like one thing. When really, it's amazing how different those things are and how we try to bring them together. And it's a very difficult process to bring them together.
Yeah. Song.
Yeah. I love a good song. I'm a song guy. Focus on the song. It's all about the song. It's really all about the song. All of this that we've talked about is all about the song. If you don't focus on the song, none of this is going to work. It doesn't matter. You could do all things right and not focus on the song, and it's just not going to work for you.
Final question.
Yeah.
Because we've been here for a while.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been fun.
I will be editing this somewhere probably in New York in the next couple of weeks.
Oh,
yes,
awesome.
and thank you for coming. Really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Well, real quick, the venue deep before we get into it, I was like, final question. I did forget about this. So the venue Deep South, I don't know how much you want to talk about. Talk about that. I've got a lot of great memories there. We played there many times. Any thoughts just on having a successful venue for a number of years and facilitating great times?
Sure, yeah. Deep South the Bar was a lot of fun. We did it for 11 years. We estimate over 40,000 musicians played on that stage.
Wow.
It was a great venue. We did everything we set out to do, which was create an atmosphere welcoming to musicians, and we did that, and we created a great place. Being in, and we eventually closed at the end of about a year ago. We had closed at the end of 2018 for several reasons, not the least of which I'm just at a different place in my life. I have 2 young kids now, and when I started the bar, I was, single, and that was, just had a lot more time on my hands. But a couple things I didn't realize getting into the bar business. I didn't realize how little I would listen to music when I was doing it. Like somebody asked me as I was closing, they said, what are you looking forward to after closing your bar? And I'm like, listening to live music.
Yeah.
Because I probably had, of those 40,000 musicians that played, I heard very few of them. Because as the business owner of a music venue, you notice the light that's out over there, and you notice the guy at the end of the bar that hasn't gotten his drink but probably should have, and you notice the channel 12 on the board is crackling a little bit, and that we thought we were going to fix last week, and then you notice that they're low on toilet paper in the bathroom, and then you notice, and pretty soon you just don't notice the music. It's just a different, I got into this business because I love music, and I do love music. And I still love music, but the bar business is very different than loving music. And let me tell you one quick story about that.
Sure, please.
A guy came up to me outside of the bar one time, and I tell this to acts all the time. Know what you're selling when you're selling your band. And selling your band to a bar versus selling your band to a record label is 2 very different things. Don't have the same approach to the 2 because they're different. A guy came up to me at the bar and he said, I've always wanted to play your bar. We have a band, we're down in Johnson County, and we've always wanted to play here. And we have about 100 friends, and they come out to my barn once a month, and we have this jam, and they just drink. They drink a lot. They are drinkers. And if we could find a place to play, I could bring those 100 people, and they would drink a lot. And I said, well, that sounds good. Let's book it. So we got out our calendars right there and booked a show right on the spot, standing out on the sidewalk outside of Deep South. And after we booked it, I said, I probably should have asked this before I booked you, but are you any good? Are you guys any good? And the sort of guy, he goes, not really. But we're trying, but no, we're not. And the reality was he was right. They weren't that great, but they brought 100 people who drank a lot, and we booked them for 5 years, and every month they just kept coming back. But the reality is that's a great example of like, that's how you sell to a venue.
Yeah.
You know, I get these emails as a venue. I would get these emails that would say like, hey, our drummer went to Berkeley and we had this producer that did our record and blah, blah, blah. Like, we don't care. That's great if you're like talking to my management hat. That's cool. I want to know that stuff. That's all cool stuff. But when you're trying to get into a venue, tell me how many people you can bring, or if none, tell me that. And kind of, it's just a different model. It's not
totally.
It's not the music business in that world. And so I was, I wasn't disenchanted with it. I wasn't. It was just time. The lease was also up, so it was just good timing. It was kind of like, look, I'm having a kid. Lease is up. It's a good time for me to just go into the next chapter.
Yeah.
I won't say I'll never do it again. I may, but we accomplished everything we wanted to accomplish, which was giving a lot of artists a stage to play on in a comfortable, welcoming atmosphere.
I was one of them, and I really appreciate.
Yeah.
It was a good sounding room, and I enjoyed reading all of the fun lyrics.
Oh,
on
we
the
had
walls.
lyrics painted on the wall.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. That was a product of my inability to decorate. 'Cause several days before we were open, the wall, I just looked at the walls and I was like, wow, these are really red.
Like like walls, right?
And so I started calling friends and I said, hey, do you want to come paint a lyric on the wall? And
what a great
and they just
idea.
came down and
wow.
And so we had lyrics all over the wall because I didn't know how to decorate.
So cool. Real quick before we get to the last question, I also had faith as an item.
Yeah.
And we both are kind of cut from the same cloth as far as that background. And any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, faith has played a big role in my life, going back to the point of it's why I wanted to go see Stryper who is a Christian rock band as my very first concert. And they were very instrumental in sort of shaping my my outlook on life, which is you can enjoy music, you can enjoy rock and roll, you can be different, you can do what you want to do, and still have a strong faith base. And there's no reason those two should be separated. And so faith has been a big part of my journey.
Yeah, me too.
And continues to be.
Yeah, same. Final question.
All right.
If you could go back in time to your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what would you tell him?
My 15-year-old self. Wow.
Back in the Cousin Rick Boston days.
Yeah. That's a tough question.
That's why
it's a good question.
End,
yeah. I don't know. I would tell my 15-year-old self that this is going to be more fun than you think it's going to be. Because at 15, I was in a small town in eastern North Carolina. And it was great, and I had a great family, and I had a great group of friends, but I don't think I had any idea that I could end up in the music business. So I would have. I don't. It's strange, but I don't have regrets. Like I don't look back at anything and think, "Gosh, I should have done that differently." And as proven in the book, like anytime I've done something that I felt like was wrong, I just took that as a great opportunity to like learn from it and change from it. And so my 15-year-old self was a pretty, I didn't even know rock and roll existed. I probably would have here's what I would tell my 15-year-old self. You don't have to move to LA to be in a band. Apparently there's bands in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Right.
Something I didn't know. And at 15, yeah.
It's one quick thing that I read that kind of contrasted with your book in Gene Simmons' Me Incorporated. I think he wrote it like in 2013, 2014. He says get your butt to a big city immediately. So I just wanted to
Glad you brought that up,
because I know that you in my cousin Rick, it's kind of an exact contrast. Just curious to see what your thoughts were.
Great, yeah. So I think it depends a little bit on like what genre of music you're trying to accomplish or what you want to do in the music business. So let's say you want to work in the music business. Yes, you need to be in a music city, unless you're planning on being an entrepreneur and starting your own thing, which is cool too. You don't have to. You could be in Topeka, Kansas, for that matter, if you wanted to, or wherever you want to be. If you're starting your own thing, because it's your thing. But if you're going to want to try to work for a music company, yes, being in Nashville or New York or LA makes sense, or Austin, or wherever else. And Raleigh's becoming one of those players. Same thing with performing music. There's certain genres you kind of need to be, and the best example is country. You have to be in Nashville to make it in mainstream commercial country music. You have to be. And I say have to be, but there's exceptions to that rule, but they're far and few between. For the most part, if you look at top 40 country music, I would venture to say that most of those artists live in Nashville. And there's other genres that somewhat fit into that category. Hip hop has certain communities that it works better in, and but bluegrass or jazz or folk or other genres, you can kind of live anywhere you want and do that. It definitely improves. The thing about a big city is this: moving to the big city is not going to be your answer. If you're a musician, you're not going to move to the big city and then become successful, whatever your definition of success is. The move itself is not going to do that, but it can help facilitate some of those goals that you've set for yourself. There's resources and places that you can, and just like we were talking about co-writing earlier, if you're in Nashville, somebody said to me one time, like, if I go to Nashville, how do I find co-writers? And I said, here's how you do it. You go to a coffee shop, you order a coffee, and when they serve you the coffee, you say, you want to get together and write a song? Because I guarantee you that person is a songwriter.
It's like LA with everybody, actors and actresses.
Yeah. So, going to a music city helps, but it's not going to be the reason you're successful.
Yeah. Great advice. Well,
cool.
I think that's...
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Thank you for the time.
Yeah.
Make sure to like, subscribe, share, do whatever you need to do. Check out Deep South. Check out Dave Rose. Get this book. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Take it easy.